Welcome back to the channel. Today, well, we're going to take a look at the best practices in wiring up an electrical switch. This would be just a switch that operates a regular receptacle on the wall. So you've got one of these on the wall and you plug your lamp into it. And this particular switch, well, it operates the receptacle. So we're going to take a look exactly at this particular switch that I've duplicated from, well, let's just say you go to help somebody out and they say the switch is broke. And in my experience, when the switch breaks, well, it just actually goes floppy and it gets stuck in the on or the off position and it needs to be replaced. So you get a call just to replace the switch. Well, that's easy enough to do, right? Well, turns out not so easy. So let's just take a little look at this one here. And for all of you that are familiar with doing some electrical, you may notice some things that are a little off. And I noticed I noticed some things that were a little off too. And especially like that ground there. And the way it was actually put in the box. And I thought to myself, okay, so what do we have here? And you know, the first thing that came to my mind was this was not installed by an electrician's helper, or an electrician's helper's friend. Because this, you know, this is something that, well, all you electricians out there would have most likely ran into over the years. And we're just going to go over some best practices and how to avoid things like, well, like this. I hope many of you have spotted the problems, but there's more to this than what meets the eye. So let's get started right now. Okay, so here is two switches and a receptacle. And the only thing that I guess a lot of people would make difference is they may orientate their receptacle like this, or they may orientate it like this, which doesn't make any difference. But when we get to switches, yeah, there's a little bit of a difference here that a lot of people have to look out for. And the switch that I just showed you that was a basket case of electrical malfunction, well, it was installed like this. Now that is supposed to be on, not no, right? And there's your off down there, FFO. So the switch is supposed to be in this position, right? Now, how do you know if it's in the right position? Well, obviously, you could see where it says off or on, right? But what do you do when you come to a switch like this that has no identifiers on it? Well, generally, like this is a builder's switch here. You can see it's all been painted with, you know, they spray painted the walls. And I took this out of a builder's. And you could see here where there's no identifiers. But generally, you can just look at the writing and you could see on the top here which way it should go. So there is an up and a down. And if you get it wrong, well, the most that'll happen is your switch will be reversed for, you know, for on and off. So I mean, if you put it like this, well, this is going to be in the on position and this will be in the off position. So, well, this particular switch that I pulled out had a lot more faults than that, and we're going to go over them right now. So the first thing I did was turn off the power, pull out that switch, and the whole idea behind a switch like this is you have a power feed come in and it's a power feed go right back out to your receptacle. And the first thing I noticed was there was no identifier on the wire. Okay, so for all electrical switches there would be a ground. And the ground on this is right there. See that green lug? And you see the copper wire that's coming up to it? Well, that's not exactly how they want this wired. Like this switch that was in there that was broke worked for years and years and years as it was, but it was completely done wrong. And inside here is a connection that you have to go for to ground the box. And that's part of the safety equipment, you know, on an electrical circuit that you must do. You should ground the box too. So if something happens, it will actually trip the breaker or the fuse, whatever protection you have, and prevent a fire or electrocution. So now we're going to move on to, well, the electrical connections, because at best they're bad. So let's start off with the ground. Okay, so there's the ground lug right there, and you could see the copper conductor that came up. And this is not how you do this. You actually have to extend the connector and go all the way around, not just on this little leg right here. So I mean, that's not the whole idea behind you know, the reason why that lug is there. But I mean, it will work, but I tell you, you're taking a lot of chances by having this type of connection with no connection to the box itself as a ground. And let's move on to the other side. Okay, so there is exact same, well, seems like the person was following the exact same training procedure that they did on the ground side. And you could see how this is only just touching the outside here. The wire is actually supposed to go all the way around. It's not supposed to be like that. You know, when you're thinking about doing any kind of connection, yes, this worked. But the problem was that it was all done wrong. And for many people, they just don't know the difference. And you know, when somebody shows up to do a job at somebody's house, you know, and they say that, well, you know, my husband passed away, and you know, he did all the handy jobs around the house and did all the electrical work, and then you look at this and you wonder, wow, okay, so this is not good, right? So what's the whole idea behind somebody who would think that this is okay? Well, it's just lack of training and lack of knowledge, and somebody that just wants to do it themselves but don't really understand the whole idea behind electrical and the safety factors involved. Now, are you allowed to work on your own electrical? Well, depending on where you live in the world, which jurisdiction, which municipality, the building codes, but generally, you're allowed to do your own electrical on some things as long as you get a building inspector, electrical inspector to come in and inspect it before the circuit is turned on. And if they spot anything like this, well, you're not going any further, right? So, I mean, this is an example of what not to do. Wanted to point out, just because I'm a little on the picky side, is, there's a fastener in here to tighten up the cable, right? And generally, people that do this kind of wiring take the sheathing off down to here. It makes it easier to run your wires rather than trying to pull out this thing that is very restrictive. So generally, you cut back the cabling, you know, to here and then tighten up the box. Yeah, there's a fastener here that tightens up the wire. You just don't leave it loose. And the only other thing that I had to do is, before I left this box, I had to do two things. But the first thing I did was I had to run a ground from the box, from this wire, attach the two pigtails together, then run a ground up to here so that it was grounded. Now let's turn it on to the other side and I'll show you what I had to do on the other side. Well, the first thing I did was I actually attached the wires properly. I took this wire here, put it on this side, put this wire on this side, actually made it loop all the way around and back. Then I had to put this black electrical tape on here to identify this as a power. And then when you look at the switch, it actually oriented itself to say on and off, not no and FFO. So now the last thing that I do before I put the switch back into the box is I always get some, well, I use a red electrical tape, and I will go all the way around a couple of times and cover all these conductors, you know, and I wrap the tape all the way around, and that way there, well, it's an added safety feature. Plus, if anybody opens that box in the future, they're going to think that maybe somebody knew what they were doing when they did the work, if the next person has to replace a switch. And that's how you could pretty much tell the difference between, you know, many do-it-yourselfers and, you know, somebody who, well, frankly needs a little more instruction. And I like to always wrap it around. That also applies for like these. I'll go all the way around, like all the way around both sides. And that also is an identifier, so, you know, the next person that goes in there, even if it's me, well, at least it gave it a little more confidence in the, you know, in the wiring that was done prior to you being there. Thanks for joining me here today. I hope you learned something here, and actually how not to do something, and then how to actually do something. If you haven't seen this channel before, you're welcome to subscribe and see some interesting things you may not see somewhere else.